friends, I just wanted to pop on quickly and give some preliminary thoughts on this book as part of my Big Ideas book club. It's not really a Jewish book, but it's a book that's really in the zeitgeist right now, and I do want to talk about it. So this is the book Yesteryear by Caro Claire Burke. It's a novel, and Caro Claire Burke also has a podcast called Diabolical Lies, and I'll make sure to link the podcast in the notes below. I thought for a long time what I wanted to talk about this book. There has been a lot of social media chatter on this book. It's a bestseller. I had to wait like 6 to 8 weeks at my public library just to get my copy, and it is everywhere right now. And the tradwife movement is also everywhere right now. I don't usually explicitly talk about politics on my channel. I talk about values, I talk about justice, I talk about morality. So I'm not going to get too political with my thoughts, certainly not in a partisan way, but I've been watching the tradwife movement emerge with much interest. And my interest in it might not be what you expect. Yes, I'm interested in the tradwife movement from a feminist perspective. I am a feminist. I believe in a radical notion that women are people and that anyone of any gender is a person and deserves to develop themselves and take their life in any direction that befits their soul. So whether that is a stay-at-home mom or stay-at-home dad or someone in the workplace, it's all good, and we should make space in our society for that. Of course, there is a social context and an economic context. What drives people into the workforce? Is it still sustainable to have single income families? What are the pressures on modern day parenthood in general and motherhood in particular? And I know that is a very, very live question right now. And as a mother of 3 who is the primary earner in my family, I feel all of those pressures too. So let me start with a general observation on the tradwife movement and the discourse around the tradwife movement. I have always had an interest in domesticity and the domestic arts. That doesn't mean I'm perfect at them. I don't seek to perform them. I don't really show my home on this channel. I only show what I want to show. I'm pretty guarded that way. I don't claim to have it all figured out, and I don't claim to be in any kind of mentoring, modeling, or teaching role for other people when it comes to the domestic arts, because I'm just a human and some things just need to stay private. But what I will say is that I really value a rich culture of domesticity, especially from a Jewish perspective. So I really get the appeal, at least superficially, of the tradwife movement. Everyone wants to live in a pleasant home according to their ability and their means. Everyone likes eating good food. Everyone likes a peaceful family life. It is no coincidence that this is part, at least since the Victorian era and the rise of the middle class and conspicuous consumption, that this is an enduring ideal in our contemporary culture. And the tradwife movement taps into that very normal yearning. And I think what happens in a lot of discourse nowadays is that it gets polarized between the right and the left, as if people who identify with feminism don't value the home, and people who value the home don't value the equality of the genders. I want to break that binary a little bit. We'll hold those thoughts and I will come back to them. Regarding the book itself, there is a massive plot twist, and this is going to be a spoiler-heavy review because I cannot really talk about the book in its fullness if I don't get to talk about the plot. So be aware, spoilers are coming. I will put a timestamp on the screen right now to let you know when the spoilers are over. The basic premise is Natalie Hill. She's a mother of 6, and she's a very, very successful homesteader slash social media influencer slash tradwife. She seems to do it all herself. She makes the most beautiful meals, and she lives in the mountains and has a ranch, and is driven by a kind of performative Christian piety. She garners huge amounts of success. There are whisperings online that this book is somewhat based on Ballerina Farm, which is a very well-known social media account. I'm not going to say whether that's true or not. That is an alleged interpretation, but we certainly recognize the type because we see it come across our social media channels. Now, here's the plot twist and the spoiler. All of a sudden, Natalie wakes up in 1855, and the lifestyle that she has glamorized now is real in the most brutal and relentless kinds of ways. Waking up on the frontier, having to live through the sweat of your brow and the drudgery of her hands. The plot twist is, spoiler, 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 is that this is basically all in her head. She suffers from mental illness, and she has created a situation where she has isolated herself with her family on this ranch in what is actually not 1855, but the current day, and that this is part of a grotesque social media experiment. This is kind of where I think the book collapses a little bit, because the discussion of her mental illness and the implications of her family, there's also a disabled child in the story, feels rushed and pretty perfunctory, and does not garner the respect that it deserves when talking about psychosis or mental illness. I understand it was towards the end of the book, but the book was kind of running out of steam at this point, and I wish a little bit more care and attention had been given to this. But the part I actually want to talk about most is the depiction of Natalie as a woman of faith. Now, I am not a Christian, so I can't speak to that part, but this book is written by someone who has great insights and great political and analytical acumen, and Caro deserves all the praise for that, and this is a very timely and important book. But her depiction of Natalie as a woman of faith feels a little bit stilted, especially for those of us who live in faith communities and who have seen expressions of faith. And of course, expressions of faith are very culture specific, but I just felt that that part felt like it was written as if Natalie was wearing a coat. Now, that could have been a plot device, that actually she's not that faithful, but you can't have it both ways. You can't have a female character who is driven by the delusions and psychosis of her faith, or have her be a cynic who manipulates her faith for clicks and views, essentially. Like, either she is sincere in kind of the existential crisis that her faith brings, or she is a grandmaster manipulator who is very cynical about how she executes this project. So that is kind of like my critique as a religious expert and as someone with a social science background on religious culture, to know that that did not feel very believable. The farming out of the kids on social media was insightful and important because it is a real phenomenon and it does real damage to families. There have been some high-profile cases of mommy vloggers and tradwife vloggers causing real harm to their families. And so I thought that was a real important point. A real strong ethical point of the book was to talk about the fallout for families, especially people who cannot consent to this and who are vulnerable, aka children. In conclusion, I thought this was a riveting book. I thought it was very well written. I read it in 3 days. I couldn't put it down. So if you want a fun romp that also tickles your brain, I highly recommend this book. And I want to say something very quickly about the impetus of both the book and the trend it is reacting against, which is the tradwife trend. And what I want to say is this: it's really okay to love your family and to love your home and to make your home beautiful in the way that you can. I'm proud to be a ba'alat habayit, a householder. Judaism is a householder religion, and the two pillars on which Jewish life relies is the synagogue and the home. And I feel that sometimes in progressive spaces, we lack the finesse or the subtlety to both create empathy for why home and homemaking is important to people, especially when they feel alienated by the commercial and professional demands of the world, and also a historical analysis why we should be careful not to glamorize homemaking in the past, or homemaking before the various feminist ways which did so much to redress the imbalances between the genders and liberate men alongside women. I guess as a little sidebar, I want to say that the husband is an interesting character because he's both perpetrator and victim. He is abusive in his own right because he is trapped in this patriarchal culture. And at the same time, if he had been truly liberated and allowed to follow his own interests and instincts, he actually could have been a wonderful father and a wonderful teacher of children. And it is actually a tragedy that he is not those things because of the conformist social expectations of gender and hierarchy placed upon him. So that's just a side note that I haven't really seen people pick up on in this book. I wish we could have a better conversation in our culture that looks both at the social determinants of family thriving, universal health care and childcare and our material needs and wage stagnation and gender roles that continue to conform and constrict, as well as the genuine drive that we live in a technological era in which we can reevaluate the domestic arts and value them as ways to find small and meaningful and enduring joys in our lives, away from our screens, away from the pressures of digital life, ironically, especially if you don't all put it on social media, and that re-enhances our sense of connection to creativity and family and relationship and friendship and community. That is a conversation I would like to see in the wake of the tradwife movement and all its deceit and what it peddles and harm that it causes, that there is a real question of human yearning at the base of it, which is how do we build the small sanctuaries of our home with our family, whether it is chosen family or family by birth, whether it is LGBTQ folks forming families together or heteronormative families, whether it is families that are interfaith or families that are secular or families of any religion, and celebrate the diversity and the beauty that we all bring to our homes. You know, I had kind of scripted and plotted this out in my head, and I thought maybe I should like write an actual essay on this, and I just became so like tangled up in my own complex thoughts where I thought, you know what, I'm just going to switch on the camera and see what I can talk about, because it is timely now, and displaying a healthy and liberatory and solidarity-based model of family is what creating my channel was about. I wanted to showcase the beauty of Jewish domesticity in a liberatory fashion, in a fashion that is open and accessible to anyone of any gender and any background, that is not essentializing, that is not conformist, that is not constricting, but that just showcases the joy of a beautifully set table and good food and family time and song and prayer and ritual and all the beautiful things that our tradition and many other traditions seeks to create in our lives. And there is no amount of screen time that can trump that. So thank you for listening to some of my kind of unformed thoughts on this. Leave your own thoughts in the comments about how you react to this book, to the depiction of religion in general or Christianity in particular. I would love to hear from my Christian viewers. If you are a homemaker or a householder, share what's meaningful to you. If you're a Jewish homemaker or a householder, share what is meaningful to you about keeping a home in a way that honors all of our humanity. So thank you very much, and I'll see you for the next video. Shalom uvracha, with peace and blessings, from my bite to your bite. Bye.